Dr. Hanja lived alone in the east wing of Earth's biggest space research station. Most people on the station stayed away from him, not because he was mean, but because he liked to be alone with his work and his thoughts. Han had only one true friend on the station. It wasn't another scientist or a worker. It was a tortoise named Bayol. But Bayol was no normal tortoise. In the year 2089, humans had learned how to make animals smarter. Bayol was a Galapagos tortoise that had been given special brain upgrades before Han got him. The tortoise was almost 50 years old now, and much smarter than any normal animal. Every morning, Han would wake up and feed Bayol fresh vegetables grown in the station's gardens. The tortoise moved slowly across the floor of Han's living space, his heavy shell making soft scraping sounds on the metal floor. "Good morning, old friend," Han said as he placed a bowl of greens in front of Bayol. The tortoise blinked his ancient eyes and moved toward the food. Han's lab was filled with screens showing brain patterns. He studied how different species' brains could connect with each other. His work had made him famous, but also made some people nervous. Humans now knew of 3 alien species in the galaxy. The peace between all of them was new and fragile. When Han worked late at night, Bayol would sit in the corner of the lab, watching with patient eyes. Sometimes, Han would talk to the tortoise about his problems. "The military wants to use my research to make weapons, Bayol," Han said one night as he looked at brain scans on his screen. "But I made this to help people understand each other, not to hurt each other." Bayol just blinked slowly, but Han felt the tortoise understood. The special thing about Bayol wasn't just that he was smart. Han had been testing a new kind of connection between himself and the tortoise. Nothing as direct as mind reading, but something deeper than normal human-animal bonds. Han could sometimes feel what Bayol was feeling. When the tortoise was hungry or tired or happy, Han would know without looking. One day, Station Director Kim came to Han's lab. She rarely visited anyone's labs personally. "Dr. Han, we have visitors coming tomorrow. Very important visitors," she said, looking uncomfortable. "The Coal Imperium has sent a science team. They asked to see your lab specifically." Han frowned. The Coal were the newest alien species humans had met. They were also the most warlike. "I don't give tours, Director," Han said. "My work is sensitive." "This isn't a request, Han," Director Kim said firmly. "Earth Central wants us to show good faith to the Coal. Their science officer seems very interested in your cross-species neural mapping." After she left, Han sat next to Bayol on the floor. The tortoise pressed his head against Han's hand. "I don't like this, old friend," Han whispered. "The Coal don't care about helping species understand each other. They only care about power." That night, Han couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the visitors coming tomorrow. In the dim light of his room, he watched Bayol sleeping in his special heated bed. The tortoise's shell rose and fell with each slow breath. Han thought about how tortoises could live for over 150 years. Bayol might outlive him by many decades. The thought usually made Han feel better about his lonely life. Tonight, it made him worry. "I'll protect you," Han promised the sleeping tortoise. "No matter what these Coal visitors want, I won't let them disturb our life here." Han didn't know it yet, but tomorrow would change everything for him and Bayol, and it would set in motion events that would take decades to unfold. The next morning, Han's lab was cleaner than it had ever been. He had stayed up late moving papers and hiding his most secret work. Bayol watched from his warm corner as Han rushed around. "They'll be here in 1 hour," Han said to the tortoise. "Remember to stay in your area. I don't trust these Coal visitors." The station alarm sounded 3 short beeps. This meant a ship had docked. Han straightened his lab coat and took a deep breath. Director Kim arrived first. Behind her walked 3 tall figures. The Coal looked almost human, but their skin had a blue-gray color and their eyes were larger. They wore tight black uniforms with many small tools attached. "Dr. Hanja, meet Dr. Daho, Chief Science Officer of the Coal Delegation." Director Kim said. Daho stepped forward. His face had no expression as he looked at Han. Your work on brain connections between species is very interesting, Daho said in perfect human language. The Cole Imperium wishes to learn more. Han nodded stiffly. I'll show you the basic parts of our research only. Some work is still private. Daho's eyes narrowed slightly, but he smiled. Of course, we respect Earth's science rules. As Han showed the visitors his main lab equipment, he noticed Daho kept looking around, as if searching for something. The other two Cole were taking pictures with small devices on their wrists. And what is this area? Daho suddenly asked, walking toward the corner where Bayal was. Han stepped quickly to block his path. That's just my personal space. My pet stays there during work hours. Pet? Daho looked interested. May I see it? Han didn't want to seem rude in front of Director Kim, so he moved aside. This is Bayal, a Galapagos tortoise. Daho bent down to look at Bayal. The tortoise was usually calm around strangers, but now he pulled his head into his shell. Han felt a wave of fear that wasn't his own. It was coming from Bayal through their special connection. Fascinating creature, Daho said, reaching toward the tortoise. Please don't touch him, Han said quickly. He's very old and gets stressed easily. Daho pulled his hand back. How old? Almost 50 years, Han answered. And these creatures can live to be over 150 years in good conditions. Daho smiled. A remarkable lifespan for an Earth animal. The rest of the tour went quickly. Han showed only the most basic equipment and gave short answers to questions. He was glad when Director Kim said it was time to leave. As the visitors were walking out, Daho turned back. One last question, Dr. Han. Have you used your neural mapping technology on your tortoise? Han felt cold suddenly. That would be against Earth science rules. Animals can't give consent for such procedures. Daho nodded. Of course. Thank you for your time. After they left, Han rushed to check on Bayal. The tortoise slowly came out of his shell, but still seemed upset. It's okay now, Han said softly, stroking Bayal's head. They're gone. That night, Han couldn't sleep again. Something about Daho had felt wrong. He got up and checked the security video from his lab. He played it back at high speed, watching the visitors. Then he saw it. While Han was talking to Director Kim, Daho had taken a small device from his pocket. He had pointed it at Bayal for a few seconds when no one was looking. Han zoomed in on the video. The device had lights that changed from red to green after scanning Bayal. They weren't just here for my research, Han whispered to himself. They wanted to scan Bayal. But why? Han looked over at the sleeping tortoise. For the first time in years, he felt afraid for his friend. He needed to increase security around his lab right away. What Han didn't know was that it was already too late. 3 weeks passed after the Cole visit. Han added new locks to his lab and living space. He also asked the station security team to check on him twice each day. They thought he was being too careful, but they did it anyway because Han was an important scientist. Han was working late one night in the main science building. His thoughts kept going back to Bayal, alone in their living space. At midnight, he decided to go home early and check on his friend. When Han reached his door, he noticed something wrong. The door was slightly open. Han never left his door open. Bayal. Han called as he slowly pushed the door open. Inside, his living space was a mess. Chairs were knocked over. Papers were on the floor. Han's heart beat faster as he ran to Bayal's corner. The special heated bed was empty. Bayal was gone. Han hit the emergency button on the wall. Red lights began flashing in the hallway. Within minutes, security officers filled Han's living space. Someone took my tortoise, Han said, his voice shaking. They broke in and took Bayal. The security chief, Officer Park, looked doubtful. Are you sure he didn't just wander off? Bayal weighs over 200 pounds, Han said angrily. He didn't wander anywhere. Look at this place. There was a fight. Officer Park nodded to her team. Check the security videos right away. The videos showed something strange. At 10:30 p.m., the hallway outside Han's door was empty. Then there was a flicker on the screen. When the picture came back 1 second later, Han's door was open, but no one was seen entering. Cloaking technology, Officer Park said, her face serious now. Very advanced. Not many groups have this. The Cole have it, Han said quietly. Before Officer Park could answer, Han's computer screen lit up with a message. Everyone turned to look at it. The message was simple. Dr. Hanja, your research on cross-species neural connections has great value to the Cole military. I am not Dr. Daho as I claimed. I am Colonel Subin of the Cole Bioweapons Division. Your Tortoise is now in my care. If you want to see it alive again, you will send your complete research database to the attached address. You have 48 hours. If you refuse, your Tortoise will become our newest test subject. Choose wisely. The message ended with a short video. It showed Biol in a small metal cage. The Tortoise was trying to hide in his shell. A blue-gray hand reached into the video and tapped the cage hard, making Biol pull deeper into his shell. Han felt sick. Through their special connection, he could feel Biol's fear and confusion, even though the Tortoise must be very far away by now. We need to contact Earth Central immediately, Officer Park said. This is an act of war by the Cole. But Han wasn't listening. He was focused on the feeling coming through his connection with Biol. The Tortoise was scared, yes, but there was something else too. Biol was waiting for Han to help him. The trust was so clear that Han almost cried. I can't give them my research, Han said finally. They would use it to make terrible weapons. But I also can't let them hurt Biol. Officer Park put her hand on Han's shoulder. Earth Central will handle this. They'll demand the Cole return your pet. Han shook his head. The Cole will deny everything. By the time diplomats are done talking, Biol will be. He couldn't finish the sentence. There must be another way, Han whispered, more to himself than anyone else. And suddenly, he knew what he had to do. Something dangerous, something illegal, but the only way to save his friend. Han floated in the strange darkness of the quantum network. Slowly, the connection with Biol grew stronger. Images became clearer. Sounds began to come through. Now Han could see through Biol's eyes. The Tortoise was in a large room with metal walls. Bright lights hung from the ceiling. Strange machines lined the walls. Men and women in black uniforms moved around, looking at screens and talking in low voices. Han tried to stay calm so he could remember everything he saw. This was a Cole military lab, he was sure of it. But where? He needed to know where Biol was being kept. A door opened. Colonel Subin walked in, now wearing a military uniform with colored marks on the shoulders. He walked straight to Biol's cage. How is our special guest today? Subin asked, smiling in a way that wasn't friendly. A woman in a white coat answered. The Tortoise's brain is fascinating. Sir, the neural patterns are unlike anything we've seen. And there's something else strange. It seems to be sending signals on a quantum band. Subin looked interested. Could it be trying to communicate with someone? Possibly. But more likely it's just a side effect of Dr. Han's experiments. Subin bent down to look at Biol. You're going to help us win the war that's coming, little creature. Your brain will control our new weapons. Dr. Han wouldn't give us his research, but you'll give us something even better. Han felt sick as he watched through Biol's eyes. The Cole were planning to use his friend as a living controller for weapons. They would connect Biol's brain to machines designed to kill. Through the connection, Han felt Biol's fear, but there was something else too. Patience. Tortoises lived for a very long time. They knew how to wait. A man in a black uniform rushed into the room. Colonel, we have a problem. Earth's defense forces are scanning this sector. They might find us. Subin looked angry. Move everything to the backup location. Take the Tortoise to Lab 7 on Daedalus 9. I'll join you there in 3 days. Han tried to focus. Daedalus 9. That was a moon orbiting a gas giant near the edge of cold space. Now he knew where Biol was going. 2 workers lifted Biol's cage. As they carried him out, the Tortoise caught sight of a large window. Outside was the blackness of space, with stars shining. A large gray moon filled most of the view. They were already near Daedalus 9. Han tried to send a thought to Biol. I will find you. Stay strong. He didn't know if the message got through, but he felt a wave of calm from the Tortoise. Maybe Biol had sensed him after all. Suddenly, alarms started blaring in the lab. The workers began running around. Something was wrong. Neural spike. Someone shouted. The Tortoise is connecting to something. Subin rushed over to Biol's cage. Shut down all quantum communications now. Han felt the connection starting to break. Before he lost contact, he sent one more thought as strongly as he could. Wait for me. I will come for you. Then darkness again. Han was thrown back through the quantum network. His mind spun through nothingness until he crashed back into his body. Han opened his eyes. He was in the medical room. Dr. Lee stood over him, looking worried. Han, can you hear me? You've been unconscious for hours. Han tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't work right. His whole body felt numb and strange. Biol, he finally managed to say. Found him. Daedalus 9. Then he noticed something was wrong. He couldn't feel his legs. He couldn't move them. What happened to me? He asked. Dr. Lee looked sad. The neural connection was too strong. It damaged your brain's motor control center. Han, you might never walk again. Han closed his eyes. The price was high, but he had found Biol. Now he just needed to figure out how to save his friend. Han opened his eyes to a white ceiling. The smell of clean sheets and medicine filled his nose. He was in the station's hospital wing. How long had he been here? He tried to sit up, but his body felt heavy. His legs didn't move at all, no matter how hard he tried. A door opened, and Director Kim walked in. She looked older somehow, tired and worried. You're finally awake, she said, sitting in a chair beside his bed. We weren't sure you would ever wake up. How long? Han's voice was rough from not being used. 3 months. You've been in a coma for 3 months. Han's heart raced. 3 months. What had happened to Biol in that time? The coal, he said. What's happening with them? Director Kim's face grew dark. We're at war. The Call attacked an Earth outpost 2 months ago. Many people died. Han wasn't surprised. The Call had been planning for war all along. That's why they wanted his research and Biol. I need to tell you something else. Director Kim said slowly. Dr. Lee told us what you did. Using that neural device was against all our rules. Under normal times, you would lose your job and maybe go to prison. Han waited for her to continue. But these aren't normal times. We need your brain, Han. The war is going badly for Earth. The Cole have new weapons, strange weapons that seem to think for themselves. Han knew what this meant. They were using Biol. His stomach felt sick. I need to get up, he said, trying again to move his legs. You can't walk, Han. The neural damage is permanent. But we have this for you. Director Kim pressed a button on the wall. A nurse came in pushing a wheelchair, but it wasn't a normal wheelchair. It had many screens and controls built into it. This is the best we could make, Director Kim explained. It connects directly to your brain. You can control it with your thoughts. Over the next few weeks, Han learned to use the special wheelchair. It was hard at first, but his brain adapted. Soon he could move around the station almost as well as before. Han also discovered something strange. The neural connection with Biol had changed his brain. He could remember things better now. He could see patterns that no one else noticed, and when he needed to solve a problem, he could be very, very patient, just like a tortoise. One day, a young woman came to his lab. She had short black hair and serious eyes. "Dr. Han, I'm Dr. Jiwoo. I've been running the lab while you were away." Han remembered her. She had been his student years ago, one of his best. "You've done good work," Han said, looking at her research on his screens. "Thank you, but I'm worried about something. Look at these readings from the Cole weapon systems." She showed him data from the war. The Cole weapons were getting smarter each day. They were learning, adapting. "It's bio," Han said quietly. "They're pushing his brain too hard, forcing it to control more and more weapons." Jiwoo looked confused. "Your Tortoise. What does he have to do with this?" Han told her everything. The kidnapping, the neural connection, what he had seen in the Cole lab. "We need to find a way to help him," Han finished, "not just for Biol's sake, but for Earth's." Jiwoo was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "The station leaders won't approve any rescue mission. It's too dangerous." "I know," Han said. "That's why we won't tell them. Will you help me?" Jiwoo looked at him, at the wheelchair he was trapped in, at the war data on the screens. Then she nodded. "What's your plan?" she asked. Han smiled for the first time in months. "We're going to build something the Cole would never expect. Something that can reach across space to help Bio." And so they began to work. The crippled scientist and his former student, planning a rescue that would take years to complete. 5 years passed. The war with the Cole continued. Earth lost many battles at first, but slowly learned to fight against the strange thinking weapons of the Cole. Han worked every day in his lab. His wheelchair moved silently around the room as he built something special, something secret. Dr. Jiwoo helped him when she could. She was now the head scientist of the station, but she still found time for Han's project. "How is the probe coming along?" she asked one day, entering his private lab. Han pointed to a small silver object on his workbench. It looked like a tiny spaceship, no bigger than a coffee cup. "Almost ready," he said. "The stealth systems work perfectly. It can fly through Cole space without being seen." Jiwoo picked up the probe carefully. "And what about the nanites?" Han rolled his wheelchair to another table. On it sat a small container of gray liquid. Under a microscope, the liquid was full of tiny machines, each smaller than a cell. "The nanites are programmed and ready," Han said. "They know exactly what to do when they reach Bio." Jiwoo looked worried. "It's been 5 years, Han. We don't even know if Bio is still." "He's alive," Han said firmly. "I can still feel him sometimes through our connection. It's weak, but it's there." In the 5 years since waking from his coma, Han had changed. His hair was now gray. His face had new lines. But his eyes were still sharp, maybe even sharper than before. The changes to his brain from the neural connection had made him think differently. He could hold an idea in his mind for months, working on tiny details that others would miss. "The plan is simple," Han explained. "The probe will carry the nanites to Daedalus 9. It will find the lab where they keep Biol and inject the nanites into his food or water. And then, the nanites will slowly change Biol's body. They'll make him stronger. They'll help his brain resist the Cole control systems. Most importantly, they'll connect with the neural link we already share." Han rolled to a large screen showing a map of Cole space. A red dot marked Daedalus 9. "Intelligence reports say their main weapon control center is there now. That's where Biol must be." Jiwoo looked at the map. "Even with stealth systems, it's dangerous. If the Cole catch us sending something into their space, they could attack the station. That's why we'll launch the probe during the meteor shower next week," Han said. "Their sensors will be busy tracking hundreds of objects. One small probe will be hard to notice." Han wheeled over to another screen. It showed a picture of a tortoise, but one very different from Biol. This tortoise had metal parts mixed with its shell and skin. This is what the nanites will slowly build, he explained. A new body for Bile. Stronger, more capable. But it will take time. Years, maybe decades. The changes need to be slow so the Cole don't notice. Decades. Jiwoo looked shocked. Han, we might not even be alive in decades. Han smiled. I might not be, but Bile will. Tortoises can live for over 150 years, and with the nanites helping him, maybe even longer. He touched the screen gently. All this time, the Cole think they've been using Bile. But soon, very slowly, Bile will start changing their systems from inside. They won't notice until it's too late. Jiwoo nodded slowly. A plan that might take decades to complete. Only you would think of something like this. Han. Not me, Han said quietly. This is how a tortoise would plan. Patient, careful, willing to wait for the right moment. The next week, during the meteor shower, the small silver probe launched silently from the station. It flew into the darkness of space, heading for Cole territory. Through his neural link, Han sent one message to Bile. Wait. Learn. Remember, 23 years passed after the probe was sent. The war with the Cole had changed over time. Sometimes it was hot, with battles and destruction. Sometimes it was cold, with only small fights at the edges of space. But it never really ended. On the Cole moon of Daedalus 9, deep inside a mountain, was their most important military center. At the heart of this center was a large room filled with machines. In the middle of the room sat something that didn't look Cole at all. It was Bile. But not the same Bile that had been taken from Han's lab so many years ago. The tortoise was now huge, almost 3 times his original size. Parts of his shell had been replaced with metal. Wires ran from machines into ports on his back. His eyes were different too. One was still natural, but the other glowed with a soft blue light. Colonel Subin, now an old man with white hair, walked into the room. He was now Grand Marshal Subin, leader of all Cole military forces. The success of his thinking weapons had made him famous and powerful. Status report, he demanded from the workers in the room. A young officer stepped forward. All war machine networks are running at full capacity, sir. The Tortoise brain system is controlling over 10,000 units today. Subin nodded and walked closer to Bile. The tortoise's head turned slightly to watch him with its one natural eye. You've served us well, Earth creature, Subin said with a cold smile. For 23 years, your brain has controlled our best weapons. We couldn't have held back the Earth forces without you. What Subin didn't know, what none of the Cole knew, was that Bile was no longer just a tool for their machines. The nanites Han had sent years ago had been working very slowly, changing Bile cell by cell. On the outside, the Cole saw the changes they had made to Bile, the metal parts, the connection ports, the increased size. But they couldn't see what was happening inside. The nanites had built new neural networks in Bile's brain. They had strengthened his natural intelligence. Most importantly, they had helped him understand the Cole systems while appearing to be under their control. For 23 years, Bile had waited. He had learned. He had remembered. Every day, the Cole had pushed more information through Bile's brain to control their weapons. But every piece of information that went through his mind was stored, analyzed, and understood. Bile now knew every part of the Cole military system. He knew their codes, their plans, their weaknesses. He knew how their weapons worked, how their ships communicated, how their defenses were built. And through it all, the weak but constant neural link with Han had remained. Bile could feel Han's presence even across the great distance of space. Back on the Earth station, Han was very old now. His hair was white, his face lined with age. He spent most of his time in his room, his special wheelchair beside his bed. Dr. Jiwoo, also much older, visited him every day. The doctors say it won't be long now, she said gently, holding Han's thin hand. Han nodded weakly. I know, but it's almost time anyway. Can you feel it? Jewu couldn't feel anything, but she knew Han was talking about his connection with Baiyal. After all these years, Han whispered, Baiyal is finally ready. The nanites have finished their work. Han closed his eyes and focused on the faint neural link. Through it, he sent one last message to his old friend. Now, Baiyal, it's time. Across space, in the Cole Command Center, Baiyal's glowing blue eye flickered. The message had been received. Grand Marshal Subin was leaving the room when one of the workers called out in alarm. Sir, something strange is happening with the neural patterns. Subin turned back, a look of concern on his old face. What is it? I don't know, sir, but all the readings are changing. It's almost like... The worker paused, looking confused and afraid. Like what? Subin demanded. Like the Tortoise is waking up. Alarms screamed throughout the Cole Command Center on Daedalus 9. Workers ran back and forth between control panels. Officers shouted orders that no one could follow. What's happening? Grand Marshal Subin demanded, his old voice cracking with anger. All war machines are going offline, sir, a young officer reported. 10,000 units just stopped. On screens around the room, red warning lights flashed. The Cold War machines, ships, robots, and weapons all across space were shutting down one by one. Fix it now, Subin shouted. Restart the Tortoise brain system. Workers rushed to Baiyal's control station, but when they got there, they stopped in fear. Baiyal was moving. For 23 years, the Tortoise had barely moved except when the coal moved him. Now his massive head was rising. The wires and tubes connected to his shell were breaking as he stood up on powerful legs. Security, Subin called. Stop that creature. Guards ran into the room with weapons. But before they could fire, all the lights went out. For 10 seconds, the room was completely dark. When emergency lights came on, the guards gasped. Baiyal was no longer in his control station. The giant Tortoise was moving across the floor toward the main computer systems. No one had ever seen him move so fast. The Tortoise that should be slow was quick and purposeful. The metal parts of his shell gleamed under the emergency lights. His one blue eye glowed brighter than before. Stop him, Subin ordered. Guards fired their weapons, but the shots bounced off Baiyal's shell. The nanites Han had sent decades ago had made the shell stronger than any coal armor. Baiyal reached the main computer, and something amazing happened. Metal tentacles extended from his shell. They plugged into the computer ports. In seconds, Baiyal was connected to every system in the command center. On screens around the room, a message appeared in coal language. System, Override. Subin watched in horror as Baiyal took control of everything. Doors, weapons, communication systems. Across coal space, their war machines weren't just shutting down. They were turning against the coal themselves. What is this? Subin whispered. How can a simple earth creature do this? Baiyal turned his head to look at Subin. The Tortoise's natural eye fixed on the old coal leader who had tortured him for so many years. A new screen lit up. On it appeared the face of Hanja, obviously recorded years ago, when he was already an old man in his wheelchair. Hello, Subin, Han's recorded message said. By the time you see this, I will be gone. But Baiyal remains. You thought you could use him as a tool. You never understood what he really is. Subin stared at the screen in shock. A tortoise never forgets, Han continued. A tortoise can wait decades for the right moment. You tortured my friend, but you also gave him access to all your systems. That was your mistake. Around the command center, more systems were failing. Smoke rose from control panels. Baiyal has been learning everything about your military for 23 years, Han's message explained. Now he's using that knowledge. Your war is over. Subin lunged for an emergency control panel, but Baiyal was faster. A metal tentacle shot out and wrapped around the old coal leader's arm. Subin looked into Baiyal's eyes, one natural, one glowing blue. For the first time in his life, the Grand Marshal felt real fear. From speakers around the room came a voice. It wasn't Han's voice. It was different, deeper, strange. It was Biol, speaking for the first time. He waited. The voice said. He learned. He remembered. In his final moments, as the command center began to destroy itself from within, Su-bin finally understood. The creature he had tortured for decades had been planning this moment all along. The last thing Su-bin saw was Biol's patient eyes watching him as the war lab, his life's work, collapsed in flames around them. Across the galaxy, Earth received a simple message from Daedalus 9. Justice comes slowly, but it comes. The Tortoise remembers.